Hey everybody, this is Marshall Townsend. Welcome back to the Growing Leadership blog. Today we're continuing the journey into the culture of MT2 leadership. And we're on to the second E, which stands for equip and empower teams of teams. This goes back for me in my study of leadership. It goes back to me when I was a teenager, when I learned from my scoutmaster, who had been an M4 Sherman tank commander in World War II in General Patton's army. And he said that, Marshall, the leader is not the one who can do the work of 10. The leader is the one who can get 10 to do the work of 1. And that really spoke well to me, because that speaks into building teams and organizations that work together to do the work of 10 as if it was 1. And I thought that was really important going into the military. Then when I got in the military, there were a lot of other philosophies. And another one stood out, is that an organization only does well what the boss checks. And now that came from a general officer, a 4-star general, Bruce C. Clark. And Bruce C. Clark had also been in General Patton's army. He was a commander of Group B when they went north and relieved the 101st at the Battle of Bastogne during the Battle of the Bulge. He was the tip of the spear for General Patton's army. And he later became a chief of staff of the army, 4-star general, lots of great quotes. And this one always stood out with me from him, is that an organization only does well what the leaders checked. In fact, I was going back to some of my old paperwork. I had my worksheets that I had done as a tank platoon leader to organize how I was going to train my platoon. And right there on the sheet, I'll share this as an image. It says, remember, an organization does well only what the boss checks. Interesting piece of paper. That later became, when I wrote the first edition of the mission training plan, the 17-230-10 MTP, which means nothing to anybody, but that was back in 1987. When I wrote that, I used that document as a source document that I had developed as a platoon leader when I first went in the Army. But this idea about an organization only does well what the leader checks did not always sit with me right. And I thought on this for a very long time. And here's what I realized. If an organization only does well what the boss checks, that's a really piss poor organization. And I'm sorry for my language, but it is. It's a poor organization, because that means the boss has got to spend all his or her time, checking. And on a scale, you have 10 things on a scale 1 to 10. You got 10 things you're going to check today. You're probably only going to get to 2 or 3 of those during the course of the day. So if you're telling me your organization is only going to do, the 2 or 3 things that you check today, well, the others, 8 to 7 things aren't being done well. So if you set up a pattern as a leader, then you would go, okay, I'm going to check 2 things today, 2 things tomorrow, 2 things the next day. Your organization is paying attention to that. So they're only doing well the things the boss is checking. So today we were doing 1 and 2 well, but tomorrow we're not going to do those well. We're only going to do 3 and 4 well, because that's where the boss is looking. That really makes for a bad organization. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Is that when you have a command climate based on the boss checking, it's not about leadership. It's about management. This is all about, this is what managers do. This is what management's all about. Managers check people and things. Which is different from leadership. And the reason the managers got to check things is because there's no trust, there's no faith in the members of that organization to be doing things right. And it also means that the leader has not empowered the people in the organization to do things right, because they haven't equipped them with the tools. And what I always said was that here's the job of a leader. The job of the leader is not to be checking everything. The job of the leader is to empower the people in the organization to look with the leader's eyes, to hear with the leader's ears, to have the standards of a leader, the standards of the leader. So my job as a leader was to empower my team by equipping them with my ears, my eyes, my standards, so that they could take that and embody that within the organization. That way, I wasn't to do the work of 10. I could have 10 do the work of 1. a very important element in building a team and building an organization. And the best way to do that is part of this empowerment is you want them to become as much ownership and responsibility within the company as you do, the owner. And that way you operate as a team. You know, a football team can't operate if the coach is the only one on the sideline with ownership of the team. In fact, he's probably doesn't have ownership. The ownership's up in the box someplace. And the members of the team, if they don't feel like they're part of that team, will never play together as a team. So the only way that you can build this culture within an organization is the leader must impart to them the leader's eyes, the leader's ears, and the leader's standard. And then they can move forward. And then the second part of this is that the leader may not be the best at what you do. I was talking to my friend in Estonia this morning, and she was reminding me that the leader of the orchestra doesn't teach the violinists, the oboes, the drummer how to play their instruments. It doesn't tell them how. The leader of the orchestra brings them together into a unified group that plays as an organization. But he's not an expert violinist, and he doesn't know how to play the violin, odds are. So for the leader to be the one that checking the violinist on how to do it, how to play the violin, is wasting that leader's time. See, that person is much more qualified. So I've got to empower them to step forward and play at their best, to be able to develop their own skills. So part of this organization is an organization that does well, that only the boss checks, is an organization that's going to fall on its face. It's going to fail. But if it's an organization where the leader empowers members of the organization with the tools and the talent to raise that organization to the next level, then that's an organization that's going places. And that's the organization I want to be part of. And that's why this is such an critical element to the culture of MT2 leadership. Think about that within your own team as we go on to the next letter tomorrow. Have a good day.